not claiming responsibility?
Because they want to keep their safe havens intact, and they don't actually care if you know it was Al Qaeda. They just want to take it to us, right?
Oh, shit.
It does not matter if it's ISIS, if it's HTS, if it's Hamas. They're all one, right? They're all an Islamic army. And nobody's taking this Islamic army concept seriously. But Hamza views all the terrorist groups in the world now under his Islamic army, and that's the way he views them. And he's almost like Iranian Quds Force, where he's like, okay, this is my proxy here, this is my proxy here, this is my proxy here. Like he's planning an attack in Lebanon against some sort of U.S. interests, right? It's an Al Qaeda Hezbollah plot. But when it occurs, only Hezbollah is going to take responsibility. You won't even know Al Qaeda is involved in it. Just like Giuliani's Blitzkrieg. Al Qaeda has supported that, right? They gave him 10,000 fighters, right? Taliban gave him camps in Afghanistan. Are you hearing anything about the Taliban and Al Qaeda right now when they're talking about Syria?
Now let's expand on the problem that we're going to be facing in the long run regarding the arming of jihadist militias to fight against a common enemy in Israel, as well as in Syria and Afghanistan. Problem will be that our foreign policy is going to elicit a response that is going to be just as violent and antagonistic as what we have been doing in Gaza, which will be the precipitatory point for jihadist networks to elucidate their language, which is terrorism, because we are conducting terrorism in Gaza, and just like we have in Yemen and the Middle East in the last 25 years. This is the Jewish Chronicle, dated Saturday, June 7th today. Israel giving weapons to ISIS-linked clans to fight Hamas in Gaza. Just like we're giving weapons to neo-Nazis in Ukraine and southern Russia, which are being sold on the black market. Giving weapons to the Taliban and Al Qaeda in Afghanistan after we pull out in 2021. Giving millions of dollars, hundreds of millions of dollars in weapons aid to jihadist-linked groups like Jabhat al-Nusra, which later became Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, led by Abu Muhammad al-Jilani, who's now the president of Syria, in a CIA-backed program called Timber Sycamore, supported by the Gulf, Saudi Arabia, Jordan, Turkey, and Israel. Now, you could say that in the long run, these weapons will be used against us. Probably. Israel is reporting transferring weapons to ISIS-linked militia clans in Gaza to assist in the fight against Hamas. If you need help, just think of the absurdity of this. Hamas, which is trapped inside a prison-like environment, which there's hardly anywhere to go in Gaza. Israel needs help. The most moral, the most advanced military, one of them in the world, needs help from Salafist jihadist organizations, ISIS-linked clans, to defeat Hamas, knowing full well that these groups might later turn their weapons against you. I'm sorry, I'm not buying this. I think this is basically just to keep the problem reciprocating. More Muslims to kill later on. The policy was questioned in the Knesset by Yisrael Bitamir and Avigdor Lieberman, a former finance and defense minister, and has apparently been confirmed by Israel's Channel 12. Now a senior figure in the opposition. Lieberman accused the IDF of arming crime families in the Strip with the approval of Prime Minister Netanyahu, because Netanyahu is a terrorist by definition. So a terrorist is supporting a terrorist to fight against an alleged terrorist. Or if you want to call Hamas a terrorist group, go ahead. But you know, it's funny that a terrorist group, which is the IDF, is accusing Hamas of terrorism. In fact, the IDF has committed more terrorism than Hamas ever could dare dream of. He told Khan, Israel's provided assault rifles and light weapons to crime families in Gaza on Netanyahu's orders. The weapons are being transferred to criminals and offenders that are being directed at Israel. In my opinion, they did not pass cabinet approval. We're talking about the equivalent of ISIS in Gaza. Well, they didn't get approval for Timber Sycamore. Where do you think that money came from? Drug money, drugs, foreign seas operations, the oil fields in Damascus, seized by the American military, given to these jihadist backed groups, and now to Jelani, who's a terrorist. According to Channels 12, Amir Segal, Lieberman was correct in his allegations. The Prime Minister's office repeatedly failed to deny the claims when asked. Quote, Israel's working to defeat Hamas in various ways on the recommendations of all heads of the security establishment, end quote. Segal added that Israel now assists Gazan groups in at least 2 areas of the Strip, which he described as ISIS-linked clans. The policy was, he reported, Project of the Shin Bet, which is the intelligence division of the Israeli government, and its head, coordinated and approved by the Prime Minister, the Defense Minister, and the IDF Chief of Staff. Okay. So there's one problem. Now, these Islamist groups have been making noise, not as much noise, but now they're coming out and advising the West of their intentions to attack them because of their support for Israel in Gaza. This is the Times of Israel. Of course, our media here in the legacy media in the United States are too cowardly or too illiterate, especially conservative channels. They're completely fucking shamelessly ignorant and illiterate, fighting over Elon Musk, and these right-wing alt media channels are still debating whether trans is a threat to the fabric of American society when you have the threat, abroad coming to the United States. Al Qaeda leader in Yemen threatens Trump, Musk over Gaza war. There are no red lines. Okay. The leader of Al Qaeda's Yemen branch has threatened both President Trump and billionaire Elon Musk over the Israel-Hamas war in the Gaza Strip in the first video message since taking over the jihadist group last year. The half-hour video message by Saad bin Atef al-Awlaki, which spread online this morning via supporters of the Al Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula, which has more members than any jihadist group outside the Taliban or the Islamic State. They are a threat in the region, especially in the Arabian Peninsula. Yemen, Saudi Arabia, even, they hate the kingdom. They don't think they think they're too materialistic and ungodly. Saad bin Atef al-Awlaki is related to Anwar al-Awlaki, who's also in Yemen, killed by the Obama drone strikes, which also killed his son, 16-year-old. It also includes for lone wolf terrorists to assassinate leaders in Egypt, Jordan, and the Gulf Arab states over the war, which has decimated Gaza, because Egypt and Jordan made deals with Israel to take in Gazans. It's the only reason why. The video of al-Awlaki's speech showed images of Trump and Musk, as well as Vice President J.D. Vance, Secretary of State Marco Rubio, and Secretary of State Pete Hegseth. And it also includes images of locals of Musk's businesses, including the electronic car maker Tesla. There are no red lines. After what is happening to our people in Gaza, al-Awlaki says, reciprocity is legitimate. I've been telling you. Few people have been reporting on this. Bill Rojo's one, Sarah Adams. Few people. Even Sean Ryan, that show. The CIA, sometimes they're right. For example, the CIA in the mid-1990s wanted to assassinate bin Laden because they saw him as a credible threat to the United States and their security interests abroad. Michael Shoya, who's a sociopath, was right. Just because you work for the CIA doesn't mean you lie all the time. Sometimes they tell the truth. You just got to listen. But as soon as you say, I'm not listening anymore, not reading anymore, I think everyone's a liar, you're the one left in the dark. And you won't know what's coming. This is Bill Roggio. This is July of last year, right? Al Qaeda expands its network of training camps in Afghanistan. Again, the legacy media, the Center for Strategic Research, they're all downplaying the threat of Al Qaeda just like they did in the mid 1990s. Now, the Clinton administration at least entertained the idea. The Bush administration outright didn't want to hear it because they said that North Korea and China were the threats. Al Qaeda wasn't a threat until 9/11 happened. Okay, again, Trump administration not giving any attention to the Al Qaeda threat. They're worried about what? Trump's receding hairline or his tan face or the trans community or the leftists causing riots in Berkeley. Here we have the threat that's growing and being ignored, given weapons by not just Israel, but the United States as well, just like we did in the 90s, the late 80s, early 90s region. Al Qaeda is operating training camps in the Afghan provinces of Kandahar and Takhar. The United States Analytical Support and Sanctions Monitoring Team reported. These facilities are in addition to the located in 10 other provinces that the monitoring team identified over the past year. Additionally, the monitoring team notes that Al Qaeda still uses Afghanistan as a permissive haven under the Taliban. The monitoring team disclosed the presence of Al Qaeda training camps in the latest 1267 report on Afghanistan, July 10th. I read you that report in 2 videos prior to this one. So if you haven't seen that, go watch that video. Al Qaeda now operates training camps in 12 of Afghanistan's 34 provinces. In the previous 2 reports, the monitoring team reported that Al Qaeda has training camps in Ghazna, Lagman, Parwan, Uruzgan, Helmand province is where the second largest area of poppy fields are grown in the world outside the Golden Triangle. Zabul, Nangarhar, and again, where does money come from? Remember, there's still sanctions. So they got to get their money from the drug trade, the drug lords in Afghanistan that nobody seems to talk about. Zabul, Nangarhar, Nuristan, Baghuz, and Kumar. Notice that a lot of these provinces weren't used by Al Qaeda in the 90s because they learned their lesson. Whereas Al Qaeda was very boisterous and in your face in the 90s, Al Qaeda is very secretive and using very small, nondescript provinces in Afghanistan for their training camps. So that means there's minimal operations, minimal invasive informants in these groups. But I would submit to you that signals intelligence is prevalent. Al Qaeda's infrastructure in Afghanistan continues to expand, despite the monitoring team claim that the Taliban have done much to constrain the activities of Al Qaeda and their affiliates. That's what they told the Biden administration and the Trump administration of 2016 when they were slowly trying to fight back against the U.S. and the UN for control of the country, just like they did with Russia. It was just 10 years less, whereas the United States spent 20 years fighting for nothing. Whereas the French colonel who's talking to Martin Sheen in Apocalypse Now in that scene where he's at the dinner table, he goes, at least we made a home here. We fight for our home. You Americans you are fighting for the biggest nothing. That's what Afghanistan was. We fought for the biggest nothing. Maybe at first, when we were decimating the training camps, we were fighting for something. But as soon as the Bush administration put a quell on that during Operation Jawbreaker and bin Laden's escape to Pakistan, what will we be fighting for? So we have, and I'm going to link these articles in the description, what we have is a growing threat. The threat is that these terrorist jihadist networks that are being condensed into a singular unit, an Islamic army of sorts, the caliphate that Abu al-Baghdadi, the former caliph of the Islamic State in Levant, once proposed, that the idea of Saeed Qutb, the ideas of Hassan al-Banna, the ideas of Osama bin Laden, the ideas of Abdullah Yusuf Azam, and others like Dr. Ayman al-Zawahiri, Khalid Islambuli, Muhammad ibn Salam al-Faraj, Hassan al-Turabi, Abu Musab al-Zarqawi wanted. It's coming to fruition now that the Islamic groups are now coexisting to fight against a common enemy, which is the West. And we're precipitating this. Now, either it's from just basic malfeasance, or we're doing it incidentally, predictably, to garner a response to keep the war machine and the foreign policy of Israel and the United States of the Gulf alive, in destroying whatever is left of the Middle East and having a coexisting power between the axis of evil. And I'm not talking about Russia or North Korea. I'm talking about the United States, Saudi Arabia, and Israel. And if you take a look at the leadership of all three governments, you won't disagree with me, except for those who are imbued by ideology, whether you be a nationalist or a Salafist or a sociopath or a Kahanist, you're going to disagree with me and see I'm the enemy. I want the end of all war. I want the end of all governments because they don't serve any interest of the people. All you have to do is take a look at their works. And they are of dirty rags. These are very immoral, sinful people. And we deserve a hell of a fuck lot better. And we better be on our toes. Please, ladies and gentlemen, I do these videos not for entertainment. I don't profit from these. I try to inform the public about what is happening in their name and to try and give you the best of information unbiased. But at the same time, I am a small channel. I'm not reaching a very big audience, in the hopes of having you, the viewer, who has not made a channel, who is not doing written work or anything. Hey, why don't you do a video? You're just as important as me, even though I don't think I'm very important at all. But together as a unit, we can be. So I try to influence others to do the same. And if you're worried about looks and how I sound, I'm not very, good looking, and I don't like the sound of my voice, but it's what's here that counts. Try and share that information to try and enlighten an audience and inform them and to help them. All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for watching the video. See you in the next one.